Spider-Man Homecoming is directed by Jon Watts and it stars Tom Holland and Michael Keaton. I'm sick and tired of superhero movies, okay? I have to say it. It's not that I hate them per se, but we've been getting so many freaking superhero movies lately that with each new one of them, I start getting more and more tired. So if I say some positive things, to me they're truly positive things. And with that said, let's also talk a little bit about the Spider-Man movies. Spider-Man has always been one of my favorite superheroes, and as a child I adored the Sam Raimi movies, including Spider-Man 3. Nowadays, I see the flaws of the movie, but I still really enjoy the trilogy, especially Spider-Man 2 is one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. How does Spider-Man Homecoming stack up with the other Raimi movies? Because I've not seen The Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah. I don't care, honestly. To me, Spider-Man Homecoming is not the best Spider-Man movie, but I've been reading a lot of reviews about people saying that this is the best portrayal of Spider-Man. And in a certain way it is. I have read the comics of Spider-Man for around 6 or 7 years straight, and I really love the character. And this movie captures the essence of Spider-Man and Peter Parker when he is in high school with all his personal problems. It really is, and they blatantly said it, that they watched a lot of John Hughes movies. They were going for that John Hughes, Breakfast Club, 16 Candles vibe. They nailed it, they truly nailed it. And the Spider-Man moments are pretty cool. When Spider-Man is jumping around during the action sequences, he is quipping, he's constantly making jokes, he's kind of stumbling around because he's still not a real Spider-Man. This is a borderline origin story, but while I did love Tom Holland and I did enjoy a lot of elements of the story, just looks kind of bland. And that's the real issue with a lot of those Marvel movies, excluding the Guardians of the Galaxy. All the other movies look pretty similar in a very boring way. Watching this movie, there is barely any shot where I went, oh, that's an actually pretty shot. It looks very well, it's well lit, it's wide. There's nothing like that. The action sequences are not hard to follow per se, but they're just not all that engaging. The music doesn't help because it's incredibly generic, just like with the other movies. There is a lot of CGI, which is not bad, but yeah, it could have been a lot better, honestly, especially with more practical effects. And that's the real shame of this movie. If I hadn't seen the other Spider-Man movies, probably I would have enjoyed this way more. But I still think that the Raimi movies are better. That does not mean that this movie is bad, because now we get into the positives. As I've already said, Tom Holland is an amazing Spider-Man, and for once I did enjoy the connections with the Marvel Universe. It didn't feel as forced in as with other movies like Ant-Man. And this time around, it was just such a big joy to watch a movie, a superhero movie by Marvel, where the world is not going to end by the end of the movie. It was great, it's just almost a self-contained story. Spider-Man is fighting the Vulture is played by Michael Keaton, and he is one of the best villains, in my opinion the second best Marvel movie villain after Loki, because he was actually an interesting guy. He's evil but with a real purpose. He's a blue-collar worker who's been screwed over by Tony Stark, like a lot of other villains honestly, but still. I quite enjoyed that angle, and Michael Keaton is great in this movie, he's one of the standouts. And I also really enjoyed the dynamics between some of Peter's schoolmates, especially his best friend. Every scene with Peter and Ned talking with one another, it's just... you can feel the friendship between the actors, you truly can, and it transcends the screen. And I love those things. And some of the other actors are fine. I mean, Zendaya, who apparently is someone who everyone knows, never heard of her before this movie. Never ever. But she did a pretty good job in the movie, she was interesting as a character. The love interest is... just kind of there, like with most love interests in movies. And Marisa Tomei as Aunt May, she was pretty good. I wanted maybe a little more from her, or at least one more scene, and apparently there is a really pivotal scene that was cut from the movie, unfortunately, but Robert Downey Jr. is in the movie as well, as is Jon Favreau, and their scenes are pretty good, and I did enjoy the dynamic of almost father-son between Tony Stark and Peter Parker. But I might sound like a broken record, but the real thing about these movies is that you've seen most of these things before. I do enjoy the different approaches that this movie took, because there are cliches that have been adjusted, some of them have been also subverted, and there are one or two twists in the movie that did work pretty well, and there are 2 or 3 standout sequences. But when we're talking about a Spider-Man movie and your standout sequences do not have Spider-Man, and one of them actually pretty much only has another character, not Spider-Man, you kind of have a problem there. And as I've already said, it's a good movie, it's well made, like with all Marvel movies, but it lacks a true vision of the director. It just feels like a standard movie in terms of cinematography, in terms of soundtrack, in terms of a lot of things, of the action as well, which is very underwhelming. But I still had fun watching the movie. It's well acted, it moves at a very good pace, and I laughed a couple of times. So this is not one of the best movies of the year. It is an enjoyable film. If you watch it in theaters, you're gonna have a good time. If you love the Spider-Man character more in depth than I do, because I'm not that familiar with the lore. I've read a ton of comic books, I've watched all the movies, but I'm not one of those that says MJ should be this, and then you should have this other character that's that, or you can't remove the jock and make him a nerd who insults Peter Parker, haha, all those bullshit. I don't care about it, it's a freaking movie. Just enjoy the movie. It is enjoyable, it's a good time, nothing special in my opinion, just like with most superhero movies nowadays, unfortunately, but better than Amazing Spider-Man, I guess. But still, guys, what do you think of Spider-Man Homecoming? Do you like it or you dislike it? Tell me in the comments below. Thanks guys for watching, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.